All right. Yes. Once again, it's time for your favorite podcast. This is Survival of the Fittest is the soup du jour. I'm Roberto Treviño, your chef friend, hopefully an inspiration to you to keep moving forward in your life. That's correct. Today, I'm going to talk about something that is very dear to my heart, and that is La Panadería Puertorriqueña. And let me tell you something. One thing, Sunday mornings to me in Puerto Rico always meant una panadería. And I would always get my same old. Un cafecito puertorriqueño with either a jamón, queso, and huevo or just queso y huevo sandwich. That's my go-to in a panadería. Of course, all the other favorites are there. All the quesitos and all the different things are there. But this is what I would go for. So today, I had the pleasure to go to Taino Bakery here in Central Florida. Now, I'll get into the specifics, but in 2005, Lisa Padilla and Nicolas Fuste opened Taino Bakery in Lake Underhill. I believe it was 2005. So, and then they opened in Goldenrod, then in 192 in Kissimmee, and now in my neighborhood here in Lake Nona, which was so cool because I was so happy to hear this. And today I got to try it, and it is excellent. Now, Taino is a tribe of Indians from Puerto Rico. They're in other parts of the Caribbean as well, but mainly I think their home, like their headquarters, was at Borinquen, Puerto Rico. And, you know, this is becoming around the 90s. They became such a sort of a very kind of connection with the younger Puerto Ricans. And you started to see like the Taino sun and the Taino coqui, and people were getting tattoos of these things. And sort of that, not only like, you know, you've always seen the Puerto Rican flag be that association with Puerto Ricanos in general, but with this newer generation, not only did they have the flag, but they wanted to associate themselves with something deeper, something stronger. And that indeed was the Taino tribe. And the sun is one of the things that they use at Taino as their logo, which is really cool, you know. So, you know, this is the kind of place where I like to go to and just get my coffee and enjoy. Today, the place was packed. In fact, we were doing the podcast from there, and we decided, you know what, it's so full. I mean, you want to let people enjoy their meals there and have tables, because the Lake Nona location is relatively small, but it's really nice. And so we came back my place, and we're doing the podcast from there. But the vibe is so cool. You know, tienes música salsa tocando. It's one of those things where you kind of just get that feeling where, you know, literally after I ate there, I thought I was in Puerto Rico. Just that feeling of like, satisfaction. I ate a great meal. And this was what kind of made me say, you know what, we got to do the podcast and just kind of really go on and on about how successful and how wonderful it is to see a company like this doing so well in Central Florida. Now, keep in mind, I believe Central Florida, you know, and we say this jokingly, but it seems to have become the colony of Puerto Rico in the United States. You know, at one point in history, certainly New York was the place where Puerto Rican families would resettle from the island into the United States. But, you know, somewhere around the late 70s, early 80s, it really became Orlando. And 30, 40 years later, almost 50 years later, you know, it's become really that place where Puerto Rican culture has just kind of taken off. And it's nice to see. It's wonderful, actually. And, you know, there's different levels. There's different restaurants doing their thing as well, and different bars and, you know, places that are just specifically bars, but they got that very, very down-home island feel, you know. And when I say that, el que sabe, sabe. You know, it's not island like Jamaica or island like, you know, like Trinidad and Tobago. It's definitely Puerto Rico. Different from many other islands in the Caribbean. It's just got that sort of, yo no sé qué, como que ese saoco, as we say in Puerto Rico. And that would be a word that just sort of means like super from the island soulfulness. And And Taino has that. It has that saoco that I like to look for in and when I want to experience that sort of like meal away from home. Now, keep in mind, Puerto Rico to me is a home, that I absolutely adore, and I go back on occasion, and I just feel like, going back to Puerto Rico is always so wonderful. But being here in Central Florida has certainly become, you know what? I don't even want to say the next best thing, because honestly, it's just as good. And that's what's really exciting about what's going on here. And the level that we're seeing that these Puerto Rican companies are establishing themselves here in Central Florida and really taking the level of service and what we look for as far as, the kind of flavors that we love, but they're definitely do it nice. And it's really good to see it happening. And it's really good to, well, there's Luna, of course. She's always got, as soon as you get the mic on, she says, well, I want a piece of this. And she starts barking or something. So, as I was saying, nothing like a strong cup of Café de Puerto Rico. And I think that Taino is definitely the kind of place where you can take your family, you can enjoy the flavors, you can enjoy the ambiance. It definitely feels safe. It definitely feels healthy. And certainly, it serves its purpose. Now, I'm really excited to see what else they're going to bring to the table as far as more locations. I think that they're very strong and moving forward quickly. I was surprised when I heard they were coming to Lake Nona. And, super glad they're there. So my hat's off to Lisa and Nicolas for pulling it off, for having a really exciting location and certainly bringing ese sabor, ese sentimiento, tú me entiendes, ese just that vibe. And it's good to see, like, we know we've been, those of you who keep up with us know we've been to Don Juan Coffee and we loved it, and these are the kind of things that say to me like, oh, this is so nice to see, there's definitely other companies. Like I know several realtors from Puerto Rico that call me and they say, Mira, Treviño, we're coming to Orlando, and what do you know of any good spots? And it's just like the Orlando market is so tight right now with the restaurants and so great locations. If one happens to pop up, it's gone in no time. If one happens to close, it seems like there's just nobody. I mean, there's somebody in there right away to take over a spot. So it's one of those markets that is intense right now. And so I tell all these restaurateurs and these realtors that call me and say, like, Mira, Treviño, we're coming to Orlando. ¿Qué opina? I tell them straight up, man, it's a tight market. Prepare to spend a fair amount of money if you decide to go into a cold, dark shell. And anybody in the business knows what that means. That means like you took over a brand new location and you're going to put everything in there, from the plumbing to the electrical to the walls, the kitchen, everything, and be prepared to spend big bucks. Because to find a really good second generation spot, man, you really better have a lot of luck on your side, because it's not easy. Well, recently I was here in Lake Nona and a spot popped up. And, I was looking for a spot for a friend, and I said, hey, there's a spot here. I called. And I'm not kidding. It was, the restaurant closed, and a week later I was on it. And they told me, you know what? We already have a letter of intent on the spot. And I was like, are you kidding? And it turns out it's going to already, you see a coming soon sign on the spot and everything. And it's just like, wow, it's unbelievable. So definitely anybody coming to Central Florida to do any kind of restaurant business. And I know that everybody wants a piece of Florida right now, because Florida is definitely very business friendly, tax-wise, permit-wise, in every aspect. It's very friendly. The only thing is, try to get a great spot in a great community. That is the question, and that is the challenge. So ultimately, I tell these different restaurateurs in Puerto Rico, you know what? Tate quieto, oye, because it's not easy right now. And some listen and some don't. And I can tell you from experience, sometimes when you rush into things, it could cost you a lot of money. and you definitely don't want that. So hats off once again to Lisa and Nicolas. I really think they pulled off Taino well here in Lake Nona. And I look forward to many more meals there, I must admit. You know, I'm kind of incognito. I go in there. I mean, I'm not trying to get anything or mention it. I just order my food and enjoy it and just get on with myself. So, you know, I can't wait for my next meal there. I think share with us if you've been to Taino or if you plan on going. I like to share with the owners that that's the case, because I think that our influence is growing definitely here in the podcast. You know, we not only popular in some of the countries around the world, but definitely getting more and more popular with our listening audience de Puerto Rico, and certainly in Orlando, the foodie community, which is always great, because I think Orlando is a wonderful food city. And it goes beyond just the theme parks and the super duper like tourism industry that's here in Orlando. It really goes beyond that. And it comes down to a big Latin American community that seems to be growing, a big, in my case, a Puertorriqueño community that is, you know, obviously I've had a lot, you know, of good years in Puerto Rico, and I had some restaurants there, and it certainly helped me build a good name. So it's always nice to be somewhere else and be known. So thank you to Central Florida and for that. And, you know, again, I'm looking forward to good things in the future. So everybody hold on. We are definitely helping some of my other friends open up locations here, or at least helping them find locations here and find the staffing. And as time goes on, I think that it's only going to get better and better. You know, we saw a big gap after the pandemic for good staff. I think we've gotten kind of past that. And I think you're starting to see good cooks again, chefs rediscovering their passion for the kitchen, young cooks learning that they are passionate about the kitchen. And these things will allow all these restaurants that do come to Central Florida, in this case Orlando, to find the right staff to man their kitchens and their service on the floor as well. You know, the front of the house is another area that I don't want to say is lacking, because one thing I will say, even if they're not as professional as what you'd expect from a restaurant, there's always a genuineness about the front of the house staff in a lot of these restaurants, which makes it worth it, and certainly allows you to say, you know what, it's okay. It's okay that they're not 100% on the money, but the genuine service mentality of Latin America in general is there, and I love that. And that makes it worth it. And those are the things that I think we're starting to see here that when I got here about 4 years ago, I didn't see it. And it's starting to become a reality. And I love that. And I love that there's great restaurateurs from Puerto Rico and other parts of Latin America establishing themselves here and becoming extremely successful. I mean, there are so many good Mexican restaurants in Orlando that are extremely successful. And I really think it's time and Colombian restaurants that do well as well. But I think it's really time for the Puerto Rican restaurant to do extremely well. Now, don't get me wrong. You go to Pal Campo and you know they're doing well because you see the numbers, you see the people in there, and you see the kind of volume they're doing, and you hear about it all the time. So, and Melao Bakery as well. So these are the kind of places that have established themselves here and have been very successful, and I really have to give them a lot of credit for that. But I really think the game is changing, and there's definitely more Puerto Rican-style criollo restaurants coming here, and they're going to do well. So, everybody, get ready. It's getting good, and it's getting really good heated in a very good way. So, hey, what more do you want? That's the restaurant business. And this is Survival of the Fittest, is the soup du jour. I hope you enjoyed today's podcast. Make sure you listen to us. We're everywhere. We're on any platform you can think of. I believe we're there. Just type in Chef Roberto Treviño and you will find us. All right? Find us on Instagram as well and on Twitter. You know the name, Chef Roberto Treviño. We're here to serve. We love you all, and we'll see you soon. Keep on keeping on, everybody. Y buen provecho. Salud.